I was a bit intrigued when Kaustubh said that the topic is to talk about how sustainability can be, alignment of SDGs with or use of SDGs in aluminium sector. I have put together some slides. Hopefully, this would be what you would want to probably hear from me, and therefore I'm going to just use this and here I go. So I'm also going to start with a video, like a couple of the colleagues before me have done that. I thought it would be a good way to kind of introduce that what is it, why aluminium, what is aluminium. So it's just a short video which is put together by World Aluminium, the International Aluminium Institute. That will give you an idea about what is this material that we are talking about, and why should we listen about aluminium. So, please let me know if you can see and hear.
Aluminium is all around us, and most of the time we don't even notice. From the building we live in.
We are not able to see the video. We are able to hear.
Are you able to see the video?
And the packaging protecting
No,
our
we are
food.
not able to see the video.
Aluminium is woven into the fabric of modern life.
Okay. Now, how do I do that?
Deeksha, you can share it with me. I'll pass it on to the attendees and the panelists.
Sure. So,
Yeah.
no, thank you. Thank you, Kaustubh. So what I was showing in this video, what that video covers is how aluminium is omnipresent. It also talks about some of the key issues around sustainability that aluminium as a sector faces. One fundamental one which it shares with the cement sector is on carbon footprint, because the amount of energy that you need to make aluminium is quite high, and that happens because the bond that it needs to. So aluminium, like cement, comes from or the clinker comes from use of converting limestone. The mineral for aluminium is bauxite. Bauxite is converted into alumina. When you make alumina from bauxite, a large amount of almost 1.2 to 1.5 times of the product is actually this, we now call it byproduct. It's being very extensively used in cement sector now, is red mud, which is a lot of laterite and silica, which gets converted to a red color material, and that's why the name red mud. And then this alumina, which contains aluminium oxide, Al2O3, is put through electrolysis and converted to aluminium. And this Al2O3, the bond between aluminium and oxygen atoms, is a very strong bond and requires a lot of energy. And therefore, it's a very energy intensive sector. And since it's electrolysis process, a lot of electricity is needed. So that adds to the complication, because one is you use a huge amount of electricity, and then you lose a lot of efficiency because you are converting the fuel to electricity. And since coal is the most commonly available fuel in India for or even in China, because that's where a large amount of new capacities of aluminium have come in. So to get steady power, which you need 24/7, otherwise aluminium will freeze in these electrolytic cells. So that is one. So I've given you two examples of the environmental thing. One is the large amount of byproduct, earlier waste and now byproduct. A large amount of electricity is used, therefore carbon footprint is very high. Third, which is linked to the story that I just told you, is mining. Because if you're mining, then it impacts the biodiversity, it impacts the indigenous people there. That fourth thing is overall, the way. I think the macro trend of China impacting, so the large capacities in China. So when one looks at a lot of these material issues and then align them to our ability to sustain strategy, that what strategy should an aluminium company have so that it's around for the times to come, is where use of sustainable development goals comes in. So thanks for your patience with me, but that's why this story, and which is why how and which sustainable development goals are relevant to aluminium sector. What you can see here, where I've picked up from is, and I'm happy to share it with Costa for further sharing, is European Aluminium has put it very succinctly, saying that these are the the 8 SDGs which have biggest impact for change when you talk about aluminium sector. First one is quality education, second one being gender equality, third being affordable and clean energy, SDG 8, which in my view actually, when you look at it from larger economy perspective, is the fundamental SDG, that decent work and economic growth. If you don't grow, you can't deliver SDG 1, you can't deliver SDG 2, because you need money to do all of that. So SDG 8, 9, which is industry innovation and infrastructure, 12 on responsible consumption and production, climate action, and partnership for goals. So, these are the 8 big ones. And on the right-hand side, what you can see is, what would you do? So, I spoke about material aspects. So decarbonization, future of skills and education to be an employer of choice for both men and women, circularity, because, and you'll see as I go along and talk about how aluminium being, it's a metal which is 100% recyclable, and therefore lends itself very well as a product of this industry itself to circularity. And then, of course, if we look at just smaller loops like use of red mud in cement and construction sector, and collaborating for innovation. So to become a partner of choice to policymakers, consumers, and educational institutions. And what you see on the bottom right is Hydro is one of the very respected aluminium companies based, originating from Norway. When they've mapped the SDGs in another way, where they're saying they use it to track how they're improving their footprint. So you can see climate action coming up there. They've talked about life underwater. They've talked about life on land. So biodiversity as an aspect. To make a positive difference, they picked up SDG 4, 8, and 16. And then the third pillar of the way they work on driving innovation, and they've linked SDG 9, 12, and 13. So hopefully this gives you an idea on aluminium sector, SDGs, and how they come together. And you can also see one example I've put out there, that Aluminium Association is actually being featured in UN Sustainability Report as a contributor to sustainable economy. So, so with that context, what I'm going to also do is to use some examples. And what better example than the group company from the group what I represent, at the Aditya Birla Group, Hindalco Industries Limited. So what I'd start with is what Hindalco has done, right from stating what their purpose is, that why Hindalco exists and why Hindalco does what it does, and how the company's done that is that they're saying that we manufacture materials that makes the world greener, stronger, and smarter. So, so that's the fundamental to how sustainable business strategy, and in coining sustainable business strategy, SDGs have been used. at the cost of repeating myself, fundamental thing to any corporates or economies' ability to sustain is the economic and financial performance. So this Hindalco, the flagship metal and mining company, is a non-ferrous metals company, and two metals it operates in or manufactures: aluminium and copper. And it also makes flat rolled aluminium products. So it operates in across the value chain in aluminium, right from mining to refining to smelting, and then to make products. The global footprint is in form of its subsidiary called Novelis. Novelis is present in 4 continents out of 5. So a big presence in both North America and South America, many plants across Europe, and has a presence in China and Korea as well. So therefore, that's the geographical spread. Novelis is the largest aluminium FRP producer globally, and with now the acquisition that Hindalco through Novelis has just made of a company called Aleris, has actually made Hindalco the largest aluminium company in the world. And when I talk about now how or what does sustainability or ability to sustain mean to Hindalco, the managing director of Hindalco, Mr. Satish Pai, has been talking about what you see on the screen now. It's about Hindalco's ability to sustain in wake of the mega trends that it faces and the expectations of all key stakeholders. And therefore, does the company have resilience? Are we a reliable partner to our customers and suppliers? And are we being responsible? Is how overall ability to sustain is being looked at. And what you see in those little stars over there is also in terms of when we talk about environmental, social, and governance aspects. You can see how in these aspects have been woven in as well. And if I move forward and talk about even in terms of saying how do we view this resilient, responsible, reliable as in terms of various pockets within the company, whether it's in terms of resource base, operations, technology, innovation, people, external relationships, and demand, it weaves in very well, and that's how the model has been put there. And all of this has actually been recognized globally. It's the only company from India which has gone on to be rated as a sector leader in the Dow Jones Sustainability Index results, which were just declared last month, and it is actually emerged as the aluminium sector leader as per DJSI, and has been rated on 100th percentile in many of these things. So what I'm doing now is to just pull out how Hindalco is mapping itself against each of the SDGs, how the strategies, action, and performance is coming out. I wouldn't take time to take you through all of these. What I've done is I am picking up a few of them. You can see, like, for example, SDG 8, I just spoke about whether it's for decent work environment, training on health and safety, etc. But I have just circled 3 of them, and I'm going to talk about them in detail. Because as a manufacturing company, some of these aspects are fundamental to the ability to sustain. So in terms of responsible consumption and production, and on climate action, some examples that I'll talk about is that when it's a green aluminium, it's very important that the company takes an environmental stewardship position, which the company's taken across its value chain of production, and come out with saying that there are action plans on waste management, air emission control, water, greenhouse gases, and biodiversity. An example of waste management, when I pick up, There is a detailed approach on this. When you pick up and look up on aluminium industry, first thing that comes up is red mud or bauxite residue, as it's called. And Hindalco came up with this 5R and 1S approach that, 5Rs being, can we reduce the quantity through ore beneficiation? Can we redesign the refining process so that whatever comes out is more amenable to recycling and reuse? Actual recycling and reusing it, rehabilitating the bauxite areas which get filled up. Is the storage of the bauxite residue while you do recycling, reuse, recovering? Are we storing them well, and that what all can be recovered? So that's the way this is being looked at, and very much aligned to what one would talk about in SDG 12. If I talk of SDG 13, then there is a detailed approach towards decarbonization. I'm going to take extra couple of minutes talking about here because I couldn't show my movie earlier, but so I'm just going to take this thing that aluminium as a material has got these pros when it comes to carbon footprint, that it's infinitely recyclable, it's lightweight, and therefore can offset somebody else's carbon footprint when used well. It's of course got its cons. I talked about that, how aluminium oxide is a very strong bond to be broken and requires a lot of energy. And of course, because it's electrolysis process and very sensitive, these cells or the smelters as they are called, so it requires 24/7 power. And building on this, there are three levers that Hindalco and even Norsk Hydro, for that matter, are looking at in terms of their decarbonization levers, is to focus on energy efficiency, clean energy, which is linked to how do we address this big negative aluminium sector has. The two other pillars of the strategy build on the positives that aluminium sector has, which is that to grow in downstream with increase in recycled content, since recycled aluminium consumes 95% less energy than primary aluminium does. And third pillar being product stewardship. So can aluminium be used more and more in cars, in bulkers, in packaging, in building and construction, so many, wherever the aluminium can be used. And then of the other ones, another SDG that I would like to talk about, and something which Hindalco has been doing very well over the last few years, is a partnership that Hindalco is in. This partnership is led by a Norwegian consulting firm called Zinteo, which has a India 2022 program where there are 6 tracks. One of them is sustainable mining, then another one is on water, then another one on health. So for example, the health one is being led by Siant, the energy one is being led by Shell, the water and waste one is being led by Hindustan Unilever. So the sustainable mining platform is being led by Hindalco. And what Hindalco is looking at, along with Zinteo, is when we talk about sustainable mining, what does it mean? So it is covering all aspects, whether it's the social impact of mining, so therefore exploring that when the mine is closed and people who had migrated to mining and had lost their livelihoods earlier, what will they do when the mine is closed? So therefore coming up with projects like the Wadi project, the Kosa Silk project, because it's a partnership model. So 2 or 3 corporates coming together. So they're working with Hindustan Unilever on programs like Swachhata Doot, which go home to home and talk about health and hygiene in the areas and villages around these mines. And then also working with IUCN on to assess what is the impact of mining on biodiversity, and what could be the mitigation measures to take there. So I think that's all that I had to say. I hope this gave you some good insights into, you know, aluminium, use of SDGs to uh, to substantiate and elaborate and deepen the connect on a corporate's ability to sustain as we are defining sustainability to be.